All right, everyone, welcome to the Running Coaches Connection podcast. I'm Takashi Gould, the men's cross-country and track and field coach at Skyline High School. As per usual, we got everyone, the full house today. We have Coach Rowe, who's the women's cross-country and track and field coach at Skyline High School. We got Carl Spina, the men's and women's cross-country coach at Saline High School. And Dave El Presidente Lustig, the women's cross-country and track and field coach at Wyandotte Roosevelt High School. I think first and foremost, we got some congrats there in order for the RCC crew here. We got Saline boys, regional champs. Saline girls were second at regionals. They're state bound. And Wyandotte girls were third at regionals, and they're state bound. So congrats, guys. Clap it up. Clap it up.
You guys are legends. I love you.
Hashtag legendary. So cool. So with us today, we have a good friend of ours, Michael Newton. Goes by Michael Newty's Medium. Currently, he is not only an outstanding resource for meet management and timing. I think now he's doing some kind of athletic social media and online coordinator role of some sort at Saline High School. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, guys. I'm pumped.
All right. So we're going to, obviously, we got you on here because we want to talk about hosting meets, managing meets, not just managing, but doing a really effective and good job with it. We've all seen good meets and how exciting and properly functioning those can be, and you're seeing bad meets where crap gets held up all day. And then we think you do a pretty darn good job.
Well, thanks.
We think you do a great job, Newton. And
wow.
A question about, you get to go to meets as sometimes helping us on the coaching end, and you've timed a lot of meets. What do you think it is that you just do better that allows you to host really big meets very well and smaller meets very well? You just do a great job. What's the Newton difference?
I think that's a tough question. I think the biggest thing is probably when I started doing this, I started as like the bottommost rung working for Mick, and I was doing, I don't even remember what I started doing. I used to hand score the April Showers meet up in the press box, and that was, I think, the first job I ever did. And I just slowly progressed through the jobs until I got to timing and having a little more hands-on role with like the event order and how I thought we should run things. And so I think I kind of saw the meet from start to finish, and I didn't just come in as a timer and say, well, this is what I need as a timer. I was able to kind of realize, like, well, this is what I need as a timer, but I also know that in the press box they need this and the officials need this because I was involved in a lot of different parts. So it was probably just because I had to climb my way through the ranks more than anything, and just kind of got dragged through the mud. So now I try to make everyone's life a little easier.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of that. And also to add to that, I think because you're very young and you got your start when you were still in high school, I think you understand it from an athlete's point of view also. And you worked with me as an assistant coach really while you were in high school, and you understand it from that role. And it shows because whenever we're at a Newton meet, I notice that things for me go well and things for our athlete, most importantly, for our athletes go well. So your explanation makes perfect sense.
I feel all warmy listening to that.
We've got a lot of history, Newton and I. We go way back. We was in 8th grade.
Yeah, that's adorable, guys.
Okay, Mike. So, like, you talked about being kind of, dragged through the mud, just low man on the totem pole, just all that stuff. But, like, you kept pushing. So, like, really, at what point were you like, it's got to be better? Like, what made you want to change the way things were timed, the way things were hosted? I mean, what clicked? I mean, you could have said, well, screw this. I don't want to be a part of this because it's a pain. These guys know what they're doing. What made you want to just decide, okay, I'm going to stick with this and just move forward?
It probably has to do with starting out young and actually feeling like you can make a big difference. Like, I was probably pretty convinced when I was doing this at like 20 that I was going to get to do a state finals and all that, and I'd be able to completely, change everything, and I could be a national company and all this. So it's probably just a little bit of naivety that, I don't know, maybe if I'd come in at 35 or whatever, I would have had a little more realistic aspirations, and I wouldn't have tried to change things, and I would have been more, oh, this is how things are done. Okay, it's easier just to keep things how they are. It's probably also made me a handful of people who are not best friends with me in the state, because I kind of walked in, and when people start explaining how they do things, I just kind of get, the sideways glance of like, really, that's stupid. So it probably has been a little bit to my detriment, but yeah, I think it's realizing that just things weren't done well, and I thought I could make a difference, and I was not afraid to tell people that maybe.
Yeah, I can attest. I can remember a few moments. Why would you do it that way? I don't know. True story.
Like, what are common mistakes or things you see people that you can recognize when you go to a meet? Whether I'm sure there's not a lot of meets you go to now where you don't have a hand in it, or you're not involved with it. But maybe a lot of common mistakes you used to make, or.
I think the biggest thing, and this is from being close with you guys, I think, is and just talking with other coaches, is realizing that by no means am I the most important part of that meet. It doesn't matter if I have a hard day or not. I mean, I'm being paid to be there, first of all, but it's most importantly, like, things have to go well for athletes. And I think a lot of meets probably there's, a pedestal, whether the goal is to make money or whether it's to, make someone's life just a little bit easier by not doing everything possible for athletes and coaches. I would say that that's probably the most common mistake, and it can be hard to explain, but you kind of know it when you see it. And even, at national meets, sometimes I'll go down and, you just have snarky officials or something that are giving kids hard times that have just finished running, and they're barking at them, to do something. And it's just a realization that, yes, things do have to go well. Sorry. Things do have to, everyone kind of has to fall into place within these rough guidelines. You can't have just mass chaos and expect things to go well. But just understanding that, like, if it doesn't go perfectly to plan, it doesn't really inconvenience me that much. And, it's worth just letting it go by, or, it's definitely not worth harping on the kid about because I had to do one extra thing, or, when a coach forgets an entry. Although sometimes I'd love to sit there and tell him no because he does it every year or something like that. In reality, you're screwing the kid over more than anything. So it's probably more that realization that, the meet manager, the meet timer are not above, the event. The event is being put on for athletes. And so just kind of realizing the structure of athlete, coaches, and, spectators are the kind of three things that you have to worry about. And then you have to make sure, that you can still handle everything.
Well said.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate you not calling me out and saying I get my entries in late all the time.
I wasn't even. I had nobody in mind when I said it. You know who you are, though.
I know you've gotten a text or two from all of us at one point or another every single season of, dude, I screwed up.
No, I don't have
his followed by, yes, you did.
I don't have his phone number. That wasn't me.
Get all these weird block number calls.
Hey, man, so you've been talking about how you had a long journey from starting at the bottom with Coach Mick and then moving your way through the meets. What are some of the common, or not common mistakes, but some of the mistakes you made earlier? Because you talk a lot about changes and what you've done. How did you get to that point? What are some of those changes you've done to kind of make the meets run a little bit smoother?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I know I touched on it a little bit earlier, but it was realizing that I am not the most important person there. And although I like it when my day is easier because everything happens exactly as planned, just kind of accepting that things in reality, like at the Golden Triangle when we have 2,000 kids competing, like, it's not going to go to plan, but it's such a cool event that, I need to be able to handle that. And so that was probably earlier, I probably thought that I was the center of the meet, and I probably felt like, you know what, you need to be bending over backwards for me. because I'm providing results. And I'm the one who's doing all this work down here. And now and part of that is just things, the more you do them, they become a little easier, so I don't necessarily need everything to fall in line exactly. But I think more than anything, it's probably, I'm not the most important person in the world that day, which is hard for me to get over.
It's all good, man.
Yeah. I used to be a lot more particular when I'd go to cross-country meets, and this was some of my financial restrictions as a college student. Like, I used to never bring a generator or anything, and my whole thing was, I don't care if I post results or not because they're going to go online right away. And since then, now I at least print one copy of results so that when people, like grandparents and stuff, I don't have to explain to go to athletic.net, find your kid's schedule, all that. So there's one copy posted over there. But for the future, you can just go online because they're posted there way sooner.
Yeah. Well, that's awful sweet of you, man.
I grew a heart in the last couple of years.
That's beautiful.
Wow. So if I'm a new coach and I want to start hosting like my own meets, or maybe I just want to get a foot in the door in this, what's a starter kit for meet management? And I realize it's kind of a very broad, open-ended question there.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is probably, it depends if you're talking cross-country or track. I think the thing that holds up track meets almost more than anything is not hiring enough officials, and that's, red shirt. Doesn't have to be a red shirt necessarily, but just, when the coach is planning to do all these things that day, that's usually a recipe for disaster because something's going to come up with his 4x4 or something, and he's going to drop the ball somewhere. So I would say just making sure, you got volunteers or you got your assistant coaches or, whatever it is, parents or actual red shirts, and just kind of having a hand on everything, I think probably helps that go the best because, there's just so many times where things are really poorly executed, I think, and if you just had, 2 more people there or something, it probably would have gone pretty well. Other than that.
So I guess how about this, and I'll give you this scenario. So Ro and I are looking to start our own invitational next fall, now that we have a home course to some degree. What are some cross-country things that you would suggest? Like, hey, make sure to have these 5 things. These are kind of neglected, or just make sure to do a good job with this.
Way more than enough parking. And this is something I don't deal with a ton now, especially. So the management side, I'm fortunate enough that, the Hall of Fame coach, Tom McAuliffe, handles a lot of that nonsense, and I just kind of get to show up and time the kids and, dump out results. Mm-hmm. But I think parking is probably something that people get irritated by the most. I know we've been having problem at the metro parks where, they're taking credit cards and stuff, and you got a line out the door. And, that's when you're charging for parking at $8 a pop or whatever. Make sure the course is well marked, obviously, because there's nothing worse. There's just this sinking feeling when all of a sudden you are responsible for a meet where the kids go the wrong way. And it's just like this horrible, like you were just responsible for, 150 plus kids almost ruining this great effort, even though, yes, you still got this run in, but either you're going to now run short and it's not going to count for, a PR. I know that it's happened a couple of times, and even though I'm not directly responsible, it's a really, really bad feeling. I would say plan on having everything, have everything ready the night before. Don't plan on doing stuff the morning of, because whenever I try to do that, something will get forgotten. I don't know if I can name 5 for you, but
that's all right. That's plenty. Yeah. Have enough volunteers. Make sure you got enough parking. Make sure the course is well marked, and don't have everything done the day before.
Yeah, something like that.
Be organized.
You guys, everyone is smart enough. I mean, we've all been to enough meets that I think most people know what one should look like. So. Well,
listen, you're the smartest guy in the room right now. So.
I love that when you're talking about the kids going the wrong way, that you own that your thought is, how could I have done that better? Because I've been to meets where kids have gone the wrong way, and the host has replied or responded, oh, well, they should have known the course. And in
Yep.
my mind, like, I love your answer. I think that's great. And I think that's a big part, as you've discussed, why you're really good at this. Like, you get that it's about the athletes. I love it.
Me too.
For sure. And I think along with that is just not being afraid to ask people that have done it before, that have, that know what they're doing. What do you guys do? And it's asking that question in particular. If you're going to host something, hey, go find someone that's hosted an event or two and ask, what have you done before? And then you get all your answers. That could be your number 5 right there. Just ask somebody else instead of just assuming you know what to do. So, Mike, you and I have worked a lot of meets together, and every time I show up and I work with you, you have some new thing that is working. It's like you have, we talked about the Meet Pro stuff now, and then at the indoor state meet, you had the Google Docs talking to each other. The same thing at Golden Triangle. You come up with so many great things. Like, what's your favorite, or what do you think has changed your world as a timer or meet manager to make life easier, just more effective for the meets that you help out with?
Well, the biggest thing for cross country, without a question, is the barcode scanner at the back of the chute. When I talk about like working my way through the ranks, when I started working cross country meets, I worked the Legends invite one day when we had like 600 kids in a race, JV, and I sat at the back of the chute and I hand wrote every single kid that came through the line. And there was someone that would read the numbers and I would write them down. And then I would go up to the computer where the person was entering them and I would read off the numbers and he would type them in. And it was just horrible because there were so many things. Like, as I started thinking about it, I was like, well, okay, if the person reading to me reads the wrong number, I'm wrong. If I hear her wrong, the number's wrong. If I write a 6 instead of an 8 because I'm writing, 10,000 numbers today, the results are wrong. And then when I get up to the computer, if I read a number wrong, the results are wrong. If he types a number wrong, it's wrong. There are just way too many places where things could just go, even if it's just 1 or 2 numbers. Like, even if you're 1%, you're getting 6 kids wrong or 4 kids wrong, something like that. And that was just really infuriating, and it took a really long time. And so we brought in the barcode scanner, and most bibs have a barcode, but I print them on there also. And so we just scan into a blank Excel doc, kids come through, and you know that every time it scans, it's going to be perfect. It either doesn't scan or it scans the number. There's no in between of, oh, was that an 8 or a 6, because it's going into the computer. And also then that lets you, second I walk back to the timing computer, I stick in my flash drive, and the results are done. And I think my big thing as a timer, and this may be, I don't know, maybe coaches don't like this, but I always feel like if there's a mistake, a coach is going to notice it way before I will. And so my whole thing has always been, if I get results out instantly, then people will see the results, and if it's wrong, they'll be able to come find me while it's still fresh in their heads. Versus if I sit there and try to investigate, well, did that Brighton girl really finish 10th or was she 12th? And I have no clue, or, I don't know if a kid ran a 2-minute PR or something like that because something got jumbled. It's just a lot easier, I think, for that coach to see it, come to me, and then go, oh, yeah, that's right, we had a problem in that race. Versus when it happens 40 minutes afterwards or the next day sometimes, I'm sitting there like, well, I watched, 2,000 kids come across the line. 200 of them were wearing an orange jersey, so I have no clue what you're talking about. So that was probably the nicest thing for cross country. For track, I think Google Docs is probably the best thing we've done, and I still think there's some potential there, but just the ability for multiple people to be able to see this document changing in real time makes it really nice, because now we have people who write or who type in numbers, and it's all just stored on a computer screen. So whenever I want to, enter in the wristband numbers like we do for track meets, I don't have to thumb through 15 sheets of paper. I just go to the tab for the race, look up the heat, and it's stored a lot nicer, I feel like. So I'm still going to try to do some things, try to get a computer in the clerking area maybe to help those guys. But yeah, I think Google Docs is probably the best way, or the best thing that I've come up with for track so far. I'm leaving that open-ended, right?
Well, here,
how do we get that changed to Newton Docs?
Newton Docs. I like that. Google may come
So-
after us, but
So for the people that don't know this, or maybe coaches that haven't had a chance to see this, because obviously we've all been around it. Heck, we've all used it, whether it's indoors, outdoors, cross. Can you kind of explain that process real quick? I know you touched on it a little bit, but
the
what
Google
you're
Doc.
doing with the Google Doc.
Oh yeah. So it's just we used to, when kids would come through the finish line, either in lane order for those races where they finish in their lanes, or just in place order. We used to write down their numbers off of a wristband, and that was, the equivalent of a bib number in a cross-country race. And then, the sheet would get brought over to me, and if I was free, I'd type it in right then. Results would be done. But a lot of the time, you just aren't free that second. So it gets stuck under my keyboard, and then a big gust of wind comes or something, and it blows something around, and there's just a lot more room for things to go wrong. So we started doing the Google Doc, and I would just have a computer that was completely devoted to that. And so, you could just pull it up on the laptop. Okay, I'm looking for the 1600 Heat 1. You don't have to sit there and find the sheet of paper. It's Heat 1. All right, here are the kids in the order that they came in. So that's the cliff notes of it, I guess. We can go into more detail, but
Yeah, it's awesome. It's something, when you explain it like that, it seems so simple, but it's incredibly effective.
I like it.
Thanks, Joe.
you.
You're welcome, guys. I want to give somebody some approval. So with all of this stuff you got going on, all this genius technology that you're making happen, how do things vary for you between the different events that you do, not just cross versus track and indoor versus outdoor, but even from smaller meets to larger invites to championship meets?
Good question. Duels are pretty basic, except that most of the dual meets I do involve Celine in some way, and that involves 300 kids. So I'll work championship meets that are smaller than dual meets a lot of the time. So while there's less pressure because besides the first heat, you're not scoring. It's still not an excuse to get it wrong, but there's just a lot less pressure there. I think the organization actually almost matters more for me at those dual meets because we're usually a little bit lower on staff volunteers. So the Google Doc is actually really helpful for that because I only need one person sitting there. I don't need someone to also run the sheet over to me. That person who's typing can do multiple things because there's probably a little bit of downtime in between races, but you just don't have nearly the number of volunteers that you would at a championship meet. So I think dual meet, the organization part is almost a little more important. Not more important, but equally important because you're having to do a little bit more, I think, on my own that normally I can count on other people to help me out with. And then, as we get to the smaller invites and champions, I treat most meets pretty much the same as far as what I take. It's popsicle sticks, or it's I'm probably going to move to bibs next year for most of my track events, and hopefully that'll help clean up because otherwise I write out all the wristbands. And although I'm nearly perfect, sometimes 8s look like 6s, or when I write. One time we had someone, I wrote an 8 with a line under it indicating, because I always put a line under my numbers, and they came up to me and they said, I'm number 100. And I looked at it and it looked like a 1 with 2 zeros next to it. And I was like, man, I never would have thought of that error coming up. So I think I actually handle most meets roughly the same, especially with track. But I don't know. That's a good question, Rolando.
Unrelated question, impromptu question. Is it really necessary for the guy to yell, get down on the infield when you're running?
That is a great question.
I really hate it. I hate it.
It is not a requirement when using fully automatic timing. I do not. It's purely as a backup. it happens at probably every school because everyone still has an original hand timer that has worked all of their dual meets and all of their small invites and all of that. So it's just kind of something that's been left over as this new technology has crept in.
It's like like we don't need to do it anymore. Can you just say that we don't need to do that anymore?
Yeah, we can say that, Carl.
Oh, man. I didn't know that bothered you so much, Carl.
Also, when they say it, you absolutely don't have to get down on the whole infield. That's one of my favorite things. If anything, there's sometimes a need between the finish line and wherever the starter happens to be.
Right.
But I always like when I go to meets and I see people like outside of the track, you know, getting down, or like people like, you know, if you're in the direct sight line, yeah, it's not a bad idea just to maybe sit down on the turf or, you know, move over 5 feet if you need to. But yeah, you don't have to like lay down on the turf and army crawl your way out of there.
As a coach on the infield, what would be an appropriate hand signal to the guy in the press box that I get it, but I don't need to be down because I'm in the end zone?
Ooh, I can answer this one, Carl, because I am notorious for this one here.
Oh, man.
It's put 2 hands up and you point at the FAT camera, and then you point at the starter.
Oh,
that's what I do. I get yelled at all the time about it, and I'm like, I'm not in the line of vision here.
Very political.
I refuse to sit down. I'm a rebel.
I really hate get down on the infield.
I can tell, man. That's deep. I feel like you wanted to ask that question for a long time, too, right?
That's why I logged in, Ro. That's why.
Carl actually texts me weekly just to ask me that same question.
Hey, are you going to be at the October 30th podcast recording? I'm done. I just needed to know.
Oh, man.
You know, and honestly, along those same lines, when you get some of the officials, even the officials that yell at the kids that are walking in front of the camera when it's not turned on, because they really don't understand how the camera actually works, and that you can turn the camera on and off, just click a button, and that, yeah, it's good to keep that finish line area clear, but man, you get some really uptight people that are just screaming at kids, and keep the finish, don't walk from, the camera's not on, get over it.
Relax. Yeah, that's the one that always makes me feel really awkward, because I always feel like I feel bad because I feel like I didn't explain it well enough to the official, and in reality, it's, you know, I don't have time to sit there and explain it to this guy probably, or he's not going to listen or understand it completely. Like, no, people can walk in front, just like not when they're finishing. Like, that's all I ask.
Yeah,
and,
it's a lot different when they cross the line, when the camera's not on during the 100 or something like that. But when you have a race that cuts lanes and cuts in, like the mile, 2 mile, you always get that one schmo that's crossing the camera the wrong way and he's looking at it all goofy, you know.
Yeah. And you just yell at some like 15-year-old girl, and then she stares at me like it was my fault. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. No, you're fine.
That's funny.
Ah, nice.
Let's steer this back. Just playing off of the previous question here. You being familiar within our league in particular, and working a lot of championship track and field meets, how can our championship meets be improved?
Oh, well, are we talking like state finals, or are we talking? Do you want more like our conference meet?
How about this then? How about start with the one that bothers you most?
Well, I think everyone on this podcast will say probably our state finals. Cross country or track, you can go either direction. Cross country, it's absurd that we don't do some kind of scoring, live scoring as people go through the mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, and finish. Literally the exact same technology we're using is used at major cross country invites, including NCAAs. and the technology is readily available to throw up a big jumbotron at the finish line and show how people are finishing. And if you're going to use a venue like MIS where you can't be within 200 feet of a runner, I would probably start to get that compatibility going where there was an app, even if you had to buy it for the day for $1 or something, so everyone can get their money's worth. That as people finish, you should have a scoreboard that is adjusting team scores and everything, and not having to wait. And they post them pretty quick. It's usually but it's always within the last person finishing, which is the other thing. Cross country or no race is over until that last person finishes. So, in the boys race, you might have 5 minutes between that kid who won and the last kid, and there's a lot of coaches sitting there trying to figure out where their team finished. So, yeah, and you could sit there and announce over and over, these are unofficial. So it's your whole worry of, it appearing wrong and giving someone false hope. I would think that could be addressed pretty easily, but I've never done it, so maybe I'm wrong to be talking about it so casually. But we've all been to a Big Tens. We've been to an NCAA regional. We've been to a meet where they have the capability, and I can assure you it's basically the exact same technology. So it seems feasible to me.
All right.
Sorry.
What about a smaller championship? Like in OC, you touched cross. Sorry. What about at track? How about that?
I think track it more goes to. I think at our track state finals, the meet is not about the athletes. I think the meet is about the people running it. And I think they want to let you know that repeatedly. They want to let everyone know that. And so I think that needs to change. I've talked to the state a few times about some ways that maybe they can simplify some things, make it easier on coaches, make it easier on athletes, and it's usually not met well because this is how things have always been done. And I think, I don't know. I know it's a championship meet. I think results sometimes take a really, really long time to get out. I have, unfortunately, 2 years ago, I was out of the state and I was trying to follow along, and the live results just stopped working like halfway through the meet. And I was like, well, this really sucks because it was when Celine won the state title and I couldn't follow it at all. So that was really frustrating. Rolando was texting me as Grant Fisher almost broke 4 in the mile, and then I never actually saw his official time. So it was. I would think that needs to get cleaned up a little. I know that things can happen, but I just feel like on the day like that, you really need to make sure things don't go wrong.
I agree. Can't go wrong there. I like your point you brought up about the meets not necessarily about the athletes. I think they have done a better job on the check-in and the clerking end. They've done a much better job of making that process about the athletes running well. About 4 or 5 years ago, it was a little bit different, but I agree on the results end. It's not always about the athletes. I've been caught up in that too, and we've shared that story. But what else would you say about our state finals?
What else would I say?
Yeah, what else can we improve about that championship meet?
I would say, well, I mean, this is purely, I would say the numbers probably could get cut down in some races, or I don't know, 2 days is probably the way you want to look at it and look at a prelim into a final format with, I don't know, a few more races. I don't know the best way to handle that, but the meet seems too big on that Saturday. It seems to, when I'm watching some really unimpressive milers going in that slow heat, I know we always build up, but it seems like maybe it should just be a one heat thing, and I don't know. I don't know exactly. I know there's a lot of ways that various people have proposed, but I think there's room for improvement, and it's just, are people actually willing to listen to that and consider things, or is it just always going to be, well, this is how it's always been run? And that's what I would like to see changed.
I think you're preaching to the choir on that one. I think that's a thing you're on about. You know what I didn't realize until this year, in the case just because I had an athlete do double up in the mountain too, is how fast this meet moves once you hit the final. This outdoor state meet. That is insane. The whole meet is compacted within 2.5 hours.
How'd your kid do in the mile this year?
He did okay.
Tell us exactly.
He did all right. So.
All right.
So
did anybody finish in front of him?
I would see the announcing get better. You know, we didn't have Jeff Hollabaugh at this year's track meet, and so I know Jeff's a great guy that loves to talk, but he knows his stuff and he has great stats and he's got great information, and that's another thing at our state meet. I think we need to have that information. You know, we need to inform the spectators about really what's going on in these races, not just telling them who's in lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, but giving them some more info about kids they've probably never seen before. Because, you know, if we're on the east side of the state, we may have heard the name of a kid that's maybe doing something well on the west side, but we don't see them, we don't recognize them. I'd like to see our announcers be a little more knowledgeable.
Yeah, and something interesting with that point, I talked to Jeff a few years ago when Grosse Pointe South was, you know, running train through our state and the nation, and I asked him why he didn't announce that they were, you know, either national record holder or whatever they were in the 4x8, and he was not allowed to announce anything that was not done in an MHSA competition, and that's what he told me. Those were the rules of announcing. So he could not mention that they went to New Balance and won. He couldn't announce anything like that. It had to be, this is what they did at regionals. This is maybe their best time for the year, but you couldn't say where if it wasn't a Michigan meet. And then, you know, you could just talk about their previous state finals. You couldn't talk about anything else, which
that's insane.
Seems,
That's interesting.
I didn't know that.
And I'm sure for Jeff, who's a guy who is very knowledgeable on everyone, like you said, it's probably really hard for him not to be saying this stuff, where, you know, especially when you're watching people like that, or, you know, Grant Fisher at the time, you just couldn't make any mention of the non-Michigan events, so
can you not say he can't say here's the national champ from indoors, running blah 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 and so forth?
No, you could only say it was only here's former state champion, or here's the time, you know, best time of whatever.
That's interesting. And he does a great job of handling those things, but I feel like if he's not around, we don't hear any of the accolades that our kids have received in state. And so, and we know there's only one Jeff Hollabaugh, so like what's going on at the other divisions also? If, you know, if we don't get him at D1, then D2, 3, 4 are also not getting that same experience. You know, I just think it's important to get our spectators involved with what's going on and who's doing what. And so,
what do you guys think about the indoor state meet? We've been trying a lot of different things with that now. What are your thoughts?
I like some things about the indoor state meet. I like that actually that a select group of people have a lot of control of it, rather than a committee or an organization like the MHSAA, because it's a little bit more, it's easier, I guess, to, you know, communicate with them about, hey, what do you think about this idea? And it doesn't have to go to a vote. And I understand that these are all things that are good for large organizations. You don't just want them willy-nilly changing things. But I think, you know, just being able to sit down and have a beer with someone and say, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And actually seeing change the next year, I think that that's something that's really nice about the indoor state meet. And then there are some other things that are not as great. And as coaches, you know, it's turned into more of a all-comers meet probably with the standards. The girls' side, more than anything, will have 200 girls qualify to the state finals or something in the 60. Maybe not 200, maybe 100, whatever it is a lot. But, you know, we went to a 2-day format last year. I think that was met well. And I know I talked to some of the guys in charge of that quite a bit, and their conversation kept coming up of, well, what if people can't afford it? and I said, I think our state needs to move away from just being this pity party maybe for, just the what if this one person cannot make it that day, or they can't justify paying for the hotel in Grand Rapids. And I understand that it comes off maybe mean when I say that, but forcing or realizing, every state runs a 2-day state meet. They find a way to do it. Yes, that school district's paying the money, but it's amazing to me that we honestly think Michigan is so far behind economically or whatever you want to call it that we could not sustain that. And we saw, everyone was up there, I think probably for both days of that.
Right.
It was a really good event, and we didn't overwhelm anybody. We actually had competitive DMRs and 4x8s. It wasn't just pick one or the other like it has been in all previous years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the product on the track was much higher. And I think this year they're moving some other things over to day one, so that'll probably get cleaned up even a little bit more. And again, it's just being able to adjust things from year to year and not having to go to this committee. We can send out a quick email or something and say, what do you guys think about this? But if those guys feel it's best to do one thing, then they can just do it. It doesn't have to go to a vote or anything like that. And I think that makes the indoor state meet a fun place to kind of experiment and use it as a little, petri dish or whatever you want to do to run experiments on to see what the best way for athletes, coaches, meet management, whatever.
It would be cool. I would love to see, and I would love to hear it. Is I've seen videos of other states, and the Illinois state meet in particular does one hell of a job. And the cool one I always saw is at the start of the race before they introduce the athletes. And as they're introducing the athletes, say that you take the 4x8, for example, then they'll say so-and-so high school comes in ranked this is the seat time of this. Say they have run this so far. These are the kids on the relay, and these kids do like a run out. And for that moment, they have this little moment, every single person, every single team. They get that where everyone's cheering them on, and it's promoting excitement, and it's really creating a little bit more, whether it's tension or excitement and hype to the moment. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I would think that's really cool. I've heard rumors, and I don't know if this is true because I asked someone else about it, and they said no. But I heard at the state finals for swimming, if you are the number one seed, you get to pick your walk-in music. Like you walk in with your other 15, qualifiers or whatever into the final.
Really?
I heard you get to pick the song that they play as you walk in.
Do you come in with a WWE title belt too? Like hoisting that thing up?
Yeah, and they have just a little kid standing there that you get to put in a headlock and throw down on a mat.
So, Mike, so you talked about so you meet around with people after and drink a beer and stuff. So, like, you got a guy like me that doesn't drink. So, like, well, how do I get a chance to talk?
Well, in Bizarro World,
oh man,
I would think you could talk to us at any point during the meet, and we might be willing to exchange information over a soda, if that is more to your taste.
Gotcha. Anyways, hey, you have worked with several meet managers over the years. I know Mick is by far probably our favorite because you guys host some great stuff, but you've also worked with some other meet managers and stuff. Like, is there like a common thread of like what works or what doesn't work, and how it works for you, like having expectations of someone like Mick and someone else that you're showing up for? Do you have any struggles or like issues that you have that way?
I think the best thing, and I think some of the reasons that some of the Mick meets have kind of taken off over the last couple of years is the familiarity. We've worked a lot of meets together, and we've spent a lot of time together, so we're both pretty comfortable at calling each other out and kind of talk about what we think is the best way to do something. And if a lot of the time I show up to meets, if I'm just timing some other random one, and I don't know that meet manager very well, if at all, and so then when he starts doing something, I don't quite have that comfort level of telling him, like, what, coach, what you're, it doesn't really make sense what you're doing. You you don't need to do this or something like that. So more than anything, I think working with Mick has just made me super comfortable, and it's been easy to say, like, hey, that's a horrible idea. And I'm sure he said it to me also when I try to throw out some of mine. So that would be the biggest thing. I think most meet managers probably don't really want to understand the timing side of things. They just probably want it to be done right. And so that's why they hire people. And they just, okay, what do you need? And I walk in and I say, I need one person to do this. I need one person to do this. I can either bring someone or you can provide someone who's of reasonable intelligence. And I think a lot of them are just, they stop by a couple times during the meet. Everything good? Yep. All right, I'll see you. So that's probably what most meet managers want to do. And fortunately, Mick is like that. So that's why we've been able to work together for as many meets as we have, I would say.
Awesome. No, it's got to be tough. So you get into like a good routine, like you and Mick can, like bash it out, and to have your issues the day of and work through it, because you guys at the end of the day it's all going to be for the best. Then you show up someplace else and it's a struggle. So that's awesome.
Well, I went to one meet. I won't say where. This place had just put in a brand new turf football field. I don't know how recent, very recent. So they told me I could only bring a tent if I had weights for it, which I don't. I only have, the stakes, and they said you absolutely cannot hammer anything into this turf. So I went to the meet, and I assumed that they would have something. Well, nope, we are using our tent here, and our team's under it. Okay, so I didn't have a tent. So it started hailing. This is like May 15th or something, so of course it started hailing on me. And I literally grabbed a tarp, and I pulled it over all of my stuff, and I sat under my tarp for about 45 minutes. And no water got on me. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't look up from my computer screen. I just went up to the starter, and I said, just keep shooting the gun. I said, I'll always be ready. And so that was kind of that level where I wanted to tell the meet manager, like, are you effing kidding me? Especially once it started, to hail on me. But, I just didn't have that comfort level because I probably won't do another meet for him. And I should have charged him double or something because it hailed on me and I didn't get a tent.
That's the saddest image in the world. You just scrubbed someone. Sorry, dude.
The life of a timer is sad sometimes. A lot of lonely Saturdays.
If I were there, I would have helped hold the tarp. The Sling Boys distance crew would have been coachless, but you would have been cared for. I would have been like holding the tarp for you. Hi, man.
Man, it's funny. Newton, do you feel like because you're a younger guy and you're all swole up and everything too, do you feel that meet managers come at you a little bit differently with stuff like that?
Probably. I've thinned down since you last saw me, I think.
Yeah.
So you may be confusing me for someone else.
Okay.
But sometimes I brought my dad one time, and the meet manager kept talking to my dad as like the head timer, and my dad had no clue what was going on. And so I would just be like, yeah, we can do that. But he would keep talking to my dad. He's like, well, okay, you're looking for someone 50. You found someone who's 50. So, yeah, I think I get treated as the apprentice a lot.
That's funny.
I should bulk back up, probably. That'll help.
Okay, let some audience know. Like, how old are you, Mike? What's your age? How old are you?
I am 24.
24. You've been doing this for how long?
At least 6 years.
Okay. And I think you had the stamp of approval from Takashi, Orlando, myself, and I think you are SPINA approved as well. So, I mean, to be 24 and to be as successful at what you're doing is pretty impressive. So, kudos to you.
If Carl says
Thank
it's good, then it's good,
man.
Guys, it is true that when Newton's timing a meet that we're going to, he'll often text me like the week before, like, hey, just so you know, I'm timing X meet. And as a coach, I'm like, yes, I know it's going to go well from entries to like results getting out. It's true. SPINA approved. Like grade A quality timing efforts.
Thank you.
We gotta drum up some business after this, man. We want some royalties, G.
What's like the one thing when when something doesn't go right, it is like it just like I said, it pisses you off. It is just like and I'll be the first one when there's big delays in between events, in between heats when there's like 2-3 minutes between races. It drives me nuts because I don't understand why there should be such a delay. And I still go to places that have that, and that's my biggest pet peeve.
I'm with you on that. I don't like that either. I've seen some crazy stuff, man. I think this might sound pathetic, but it's real. A big pet peeve of mine is when you do a relay meet someplace, or you go to a relay meet, and they make up some crazy relay, and then they have the staggers marked wrong.
I laugh because I know the exact moment that he's talking about.
You were with me. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm not going to do that because they're good folks, but it's just like,
right.
This is your meet. What are you talking about? This is my first time. This is my first time at your track. You should know your facility. It sounds silly, but it's true, man. Like, and that's why he laughs because he knows. He knows what I'm talking about.
If you're putting on I guess I would say a non-conventional relay, you might want to make sure that the staggers add up.
Exactly.
Like before meet day?
Yeah,
Yeah, not while my leadoff leg is on the track.
Right.
Like that's one of those sprint coach things that you guys worry about. That the distance coaches are like, wait, the 4x2 and the 4x1 are different.
Wow.
I mean, they're all moving really fast.
How did I get stuck with you distance guys, man?
The 4x handoff.
The 4x handoff.
Yes. The 4x handoffs and the 4x the delay before the 800.
Wow. I tell you, man, 4x2 is exciting stuff, Carl, if you give it a shot.
You know, I watched some really good 4x2s in the past couple of years, and I've watched some handoff practice enough where I can kind of spot a good handoff sometimes.
Sometimes.
I'm not a pro. I'm not coaching it, that's for sure. But I can say when it looks good. All right, so when I go to a meet, the thing that frustrates me most is when I have to go find the paper results. I want them on my phone ASAP. I feel like, you can order a tailored shirt using your phone. Have you ever seen this? I feel like we should be able to get results, which is basically a CSV or CVS file, and I feel like we should get those on our phone pretty quickly. That's why I like having new timing, because results always come super fast. There's never a delay.
No, that's
a good point.
I agree.
Well,
I don't want to have to print paper results either. So,
and he's
timing.
eco-friendly too. Look at that.
See?
Yeah, it's nice that you think of the grandparents.
It's always windy when you try to print something.
Yeah, always. It's just that silly karma of it.
A couple years ago, Carl, you told me that I was your favorite person to watch relays with. I think it was a MICA team state meet.
Yeah, because you're animated.
Do you feel that way?
Do
you still feel that way? You're
funny to listen to. Your commentary's pretty hilarious. I don't know what's going on in the race, and I don't know any of the players. Lustig is going to enjoy the race.
We'll make you watch the 4x1 a whole lot this year, Carl.
All right. I'm not going to. What is that? Is that before the mile or after the mile?
It's after.
Before it.
Okay, so as long as it goes.
It's before it.
It's after.
It's after.
You distance guys all the same.
You know what? Usually I'm working the exchange zone at home meets for the 4x1.
Wow.
I know it's like black to black and then like blue to blue or gold to gold. So I do know some about that race.
I mean, you just named every zone on the track, but that's cool too.
Yeah, well, the first to second exchange is never mind.
Yeah.
That one's the relay we're on.
This is letter.
It's like the song, Black and Yellow.
Right. It's all good. Don't even worry about it, man.
My job, my little part of the world is focused on that, hyper-focused.
Hey, Newt, I think here's the final question here. We all need to know. How'd you end up with medium?
It's a great question. Don't eat a lot. That's the key. You got to eat all your meals. So I'm not small, but you gotta cut it back every once in a while. I would have to ask you guys probably because I've had this name for about a year and a half, at least to my face. It may have been a lot longer behind my back. I don't know.
No, I told you right away. Don't worry about it.
All right. Let me tell you, the life of a SMedium is hard, though. I'm going to get up on my soapbox. You know what it's like to not be able to find pants except online, and even then they don't fit you half the time. I literally cannot buy medium shirts most of the time without them being 100% cotton because I have to dry them insanely in order for them to fit. I need to find like a youth extra large probably is more what I am. That's what I need to figure out.
A youth 2X.
I need my shirts tight in the armpit. That's my biggest worry, and I think a youth XL might give me that.
She start talking to Dave because he had those jerseys that were tight in the armpit.
Tight in the armpit. I don't know what that means.
I think SMedium is a perfect fit for you, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll try to keep it. I'll keep it going.
Well, Newt, hey, we appreciate you coming on board and spend some time with us, letting us pick your brain, and hopefully a lot of people can use this as a great resource to do a better job at meat management or a more effective job at meat management and putting together a better product that's completely focused around the kids, like what you put together. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Happy to come on.
Are you helping out the cross-country state meet this year?
I am. I will be finish shoot worker number 7 or whatever, like a play.
Like a bad play. Are they going to give you a clipboard to record some numbers down?
I hope not. My main job is just to not get puked on that day, actually.
Just bring a poncho, man. You'll be all right.
But I'm gonna live score it from the finish. No, I'm gonna periscope it or something.
Ooh.
That way everyone can have live results from the finish line.
Very nice.
Nice.
Do it.
See, look at that. Dude's already plotting on new stuff.
Last time I tried to do that, I got a call from the MHSA the morning of the state finals telling me not to even think about it. So.
Oh.
Listen, you fight the man.
That's right.